Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something, well, fundamental to how you learn, how you manage your own learning process,
Yeah.
your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, all to reach your goals.
Right. It's called self-regulated learning.
Yeah.
And, you're doing it constantly, even if you don't realize it, like planning your day or
Mm.
or figuring out a complex recipe.
Exactly. And tied closely to that is this other big idea, cognitive load theory.
Mm-hmm. CLT.
Hmm.
That one's more about your working memory, right? How it processes information when you're trying to learn something new.
Yeah, think of it like how much mental bandwidth you've got available at any one time.
And cognitive load theory looks at how we can design learning so it doesn't just, overload you, make it easier to grasp things.
So the big question we're really digging into today is how do these two pieces, your self-management skills and this mental effort, how do they actually interact?
Well, that's a fascinating question. You shared a paper that gets right into it.
I did, yeah, a really recent one.
It's titled The Interplay of Cognitive Load, Learners' Resources, and Self-Regulation. Came out in the Educational Psychology Review, May 2024.
Okay.
And the researchers, Tina Seufert, Verena Ham, Andrea Vogt, and Valentin Reimer, they specifically looked at how the difficulty of a task changes how you self-regulate.
And how does cognitive load fit in and learner resources?
Exactly. They looked at the role of that mental effort, the cognitive load, and also what you bring to the table yourself. Things like, your prior knowledge, how interested you are,
Yeah.
how those affect the difficulty regulation link.
Got it. So our mission for this deep dive then is to really unpack the main findings from this study.
Yeah, and figure out what it might mean for you, the listener, in your own learning. Sort of a shortcut through some potentially dense psych concepts.
Making it practical. Love it. Okay, so where should we start? You mentioned a model by Seufert earlier.
Yes, Tina Seufert's work from 2018-2020. She proposed this really insightful model about the relationship between task difficulty and how much you self-regulate.
Okay, what's the core idea?
It's not a straight line. She suggests it's more like an inverted U shape, an upside-down U.
An upside down U. Okay, I'm picturing it. How does that map onto learning?
Well, think about it. On one end, you have really easy tasks, like super simple stuff.
Okay, like remembering my address.
Exactly. Your resources are high, the cognitive load is minimal, and you probably don't spend any time strategizing how to learn it. You just
Yep.
do it or
Ah.
know it.
Low challenge, low need for active regulation.
Hmm.
Makes sense. What about the other end of the U? When things get really hard.
So Seufert's model predicts that when a task feels overwhelmingly difficult, like, say, trying to decipher a super technical scientific paper way outside your field, your mental resources feel depleted, the cognitive load is just way too high,
Mhm.
and that extreme difficulty can actually hinder your ability to self-regulate effectively.
How so?
Well, you might struggle to plan or monitor if you're understanding, or even adjust your approach. You might just feel completely swamped,
Hmm.
and maybe give up on trying to learn strategically.
Okay, so too easy, no need to regulate. Too hard, maybe can't regulate effectively. So that sweet spot, the peak of the upside down U, must be in the middle then.
That's exactly it. Moderately difficult tasks. Challenging enough that you have to engage, but not so hard that it feels impossible.
Right.
That's where the model suggests you'll see the most active self-regulation. You're planning, you're checking your understanding, you're adjusting your strategies as you go.
That's a really useful framework, but let's clarify task difficulty. It's not just about the content itself, is it?
That's a crucial point. No. In Seufert's model, task difficulty includes both the complexity of the material, like understanding quantum physics, and the effort involved in managing the learning process itself.
Managing the process, like what?
Like figuring out your study schedule, deciding how to take notes, monitoring your progress, realizing you're stuck, and deciding what to do next. All that metacognitive stuff. It's the whole package.
Okay, that makes the model even richer. So that's the theory. How did this 2024 study actually go about testing it? What were they trying to find?
Well, their main aim was pretty direct, to see if they could find empirical evidence for that specific inverted U-shaped relationship.
Between perceived difficulty and self-regulation.
Exactly. And crucially, they also wanted to understand the roles of learner resources, prior knowledge, interest, that kind of thing, and cognitive load in that relationship.
Yeah.
Do those factors kind of explain why the U-shape might occur? Are they mediators?
Right, the underlying mechanism. So how did they set it up? What was the experiment like?
They used a within-subject design, which means they looked at the same group of students, 67 of them across different situations.
Different situations being.
4 real exams they were taking:
Mhm.
English, math, German, and what they called a profile subject, like a specialized course.
Okay, so real stakes involved. What did they measure?
For each exam, the students reported on their strategy use, both cognitive strategies like organizing material, elaborating on it, repeating facts,
The doing strategies.
right? And also metacognitive strategies, the planning, monitoring, and regulating ones, like checking comprehension, adjusting study plans.
Got it. And they also rated difficulty and load.
Yep. They rated how difficult they perceived each exam prep to be, the cognitive load they experienced, how much mental effort it took, and also their available resources. Things like prior knowledge, interest, self-efficacy for that subject.
And because they had data for all 4 exams from each student.
They needed a specific statistical approach. They used multi-level analysis to properly handle those repeated measures from the same individuals.
Okay, sounds thorough. Let's get to the juicy part. What did they find? Let's start with those cognitive strategies, the ones for processing information.
For those cognitive strategies, organizing, elaborating, rehearsing, they did find support for that inverted U shape.
Really? So students use them most when tasks felt moderately difficult.
That's what the data showed. It suggests that, yeah, when the challenge was in that middle zone, students were more actively using these techniques to grapple with the material.
That fits Suffert's model nicely, doesn't it?
It does. And cognitive load seemed to play a key role in explaining this.
How so? The mental effort.
Yeah. As perceived task difficulty went up, students reported higher cognitive load. And this increase in load was linked to more use of cognitive strategies, especially in that moderate difficulty range.
So a bit of mental effort pushes you to use strategies.
Right. But there was also a hint in the data that when tasks got very difficult, that really high cognitive load might actually start to hinder strategy use. Like maybe the brain just gets too full to effectively organize or elaborate. Overload.
Fascinating. So load acts as a mediator, but its effects might change at the extremes. What about the learner resources interest, prior knowledge, confidence? How did they fit in?
That showed a slightly different, almost competing pattern. As students perceived tasks as more difficult, they tended to report having fewer available resources.
Oh, interesting. So harder tasks made them feel less interested or capable.
Potentially, yeah. And this decrease in perceived resources was then associated with less use of cognitive strategies.
Wait, so let me get this straight. Increasing difficulty is linked to higher load, which pushes for more strategy use.
Up to a point.
But increasing difficulty is also linked to lower perceived resources, which pulls towards less strategy use.
Exactly. That's what the researchers called competitive mediation. Difficulty creates opposing pressures through these different pathways, load and resources.
Wow, okay. That adds a lot of nuance. It's not just about the task, it's also deeply about how you feel about the task and your ability to tackle it.
Precisely. Your internal state matters a lot.
Okay, so that was cognitive strategies. What about the metacognitive ones? The planning, monitoring, regulating type stuff. Did they see the same U shape there?
Actually, for metacognitive strategies, the main finding was different. It was primarily a linear relationship.
Linear, so just straight up.
Pretty much. As students perceived the exams to be more difficult, they reported using these planning and monitoring strategies more often. They didn't really see the downturn at the very high difficulty end that the inverted U model would predict.
Huh. So even when things got really tough, students reported trying harder to manage their learning, to plan and check.
That seems to be what the data suggested for these particular strategies in this context.
Interesting. And what about the roles of cognitive load and resources for these metacognitive strategies, similar mediators?
Broadly, yes. Higher perceived difficulty was linked to higher cognitive load, and that higher load was associated with more use of metacognitive strategies.
Okay.
But again, just like with cognitive strategies, there was maybe a slight indication that at the very highest difficulty levels, extremely high load might start to have a negative impact, but the evidence for that downturn wasn't as strong here.
And the resources, same competitive effect.
Yes, very similar pattern. Higher perceived difficulty was associated with lower perceived resources, and lower resources were linked to less use of metacognitive strategies.
So that competitive mediation idea seems pretty consistent across both types of strategy. Difficulty pushes you to manage more, but feeling less resourced pulls you back.
That seems to be a key dynamic they identified.
This study is painting a really complex picture. Were there any other sort of nuances or unexpected findings the researchers highlighted?
Yeah, a couple of interesting points. One was that they didn't find the strong negative correlation between overall resources and overall cognitive load that you might intuitively expect.
You mean you'd think having more resources, like knowing more, would make the task feel less mentally taxing, lower the load?
Right. But the link wasn't strongly negative in their data, and the researchers had a potential explanation. They suggested it might be because cognitive load, as measured, often lumps different types of load together.
Different types.
Yeah, like extraneous load, that's the unnecessary mental effort caused by, say, confusing instructions or a bad layout. And germane load, that's the good kind of effort, the deep processing where you're making connections and really learning.
Okay.
So maybe having more prior knowledge, a resource, reduces the confusing extraneous load, but it might actually allow you to engage in more beneficial germane load, more deep thinking. So the overall effect on measured load is complex.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just how hard your brain is working, but what it's working on. Useful effort versus just clutter.
Exactly. Another point they raised was about the range of difficulty.
What about it?
While the exams were real and varied in difficulty, they might not have included tasks that were truly at that extreme upper end, the kind of incomprehensible challenge that might fully shut down self-regulation according to the model.
Right. There's a difference between a hard exam and trying to read ancient Sumerian with no background. The study might not have captured that far end of the spectrum.
Precisely. And finally, they were upfront about limitations, of course, like the sample size being relatively modest, the students coming from similar background, and the fact they relied on self-reports, students telling them about their strategies and perceived difficulty, which is valuable data, but, it can be influenced by memory or how accurately people judge their own processes.
Sure, standard limitations for this kind of research. Okay, so pulling all this together, what's the big takeaway message for someone listening, trying to improve their own learning?
I think the core message is that managing your learning effectively, self-regulation, it isn't just a matter of willpower or motivation. It's deeply intertwined with the challenge of the task and the mental effort it demands, that cognitive load.
And your own resources matter hugely, too.
Absolutely. Your existing knowledge, your interest, your confidence, these act as critical resources that shape how you perceive difficulty and whether you can deploy effective strategies when things get tough. It's a dynamic interplay.
So are there practical implications here, things we can actually do differently based on this?
Well, the studies suggest that being challenged is actually important. Experiencing tasks of varying difficulty seems to stimulate self-regulation. It pushes you to adapt.
So don't shy away from moderate challenges.
Right. But maybe even more importantly, it highlights the value of actively building your learner resources.
How do you mean?
Cultivating genuine interest in subjects, working on building foundational knowledge so you have something to connect new ideas to, developing a positive self-concept about your ability to learn. These things aren't just nice to have.
They act as a buffer.
Exactly. They can buffer you against the negative effects of high difficulty or high cognitive load, helping you stay engaged and strategic, even when learning gets demanding.
So find the right challenge level, but also, crucially, build up those internal resources.
That seems to be the key. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Go on.
How can you become more conscious of adjusting your own learning strategies based on how difficult a task feels? Think about it. When something feels easy versus moderately hard versus really complex, how does that affect your mental effort? And how can you deliberately leverage your resources, maybe activating prior knowledge before diving in, or finding ways to boost your interest if it's low?
So being more strategic about how you approach different levels of challenge.
Yes. Think about specific examples from your own learning. When did you hit that moderate challenge sweet spot, and what were you doing? When did you feel overwhelmed, and could thinking of load and resources have helped?
Understanding that interplay, it really could be a powerful tool for becoming a more effective, more self-directed learner.
I think so. It gives you more levers to pull.
Some really valuable insights there. Thanks for walking us through that study.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.
Until our next exploration on the deep dive.